bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio. For the masses. Yeah. How you doing? How you doing? Today is Wednesday, September 20th, 2019. 324 days into the new year. Just 41 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? Hey, tonight is night three of our Open Lines Week here on Fade to Black. 4 straight nights of your calls and questions with some of the best and brightest of our community. Tonight, Whitley Strieber is here. He's got a new book out, too, as well. It's called A New World. So tonight, your calls, your conversation with Whitley Strieber. Tomorrow night, right here, Richard Dolan. Incredible. 4 straight nights. So we have Billy Carson, Travis Walton, Whitley Strieber tonight, Richard Dolan tomorrow night. What an incredible week. You know, if I was a listener, and I am, but if I was a listener, and this was the kind of programming I had coming in, oh, man. Oh, yeah, right? Pretty incredible. The bonus is I am a listener, but I'm also the host. It's my gig, man. Tonight is night 3 of our Open Lines Week here on Fade to Black. 4 straight nights of your calls and conversation with some of the best and brightest minds of our community. Tonight it's Whitley Strieber. Whitley, of course, is the author of Communion, and his new book released this week is called A New World. Now, as science advances, we are finding that the universe is far larger and more complex than we ever imagined, and mysterious beings like our visitors, which we dismissed as imagery, are turning out to be real. This is calling to all of us to find a new life, a new world in which they play a part. Now, all of this and much more is discussed in The New World, and tonight you'll get to ask Whitley about our future and contact that will shatter all of our previous theories and beliefs and reveal the experience for what it is. The strangest, most powerful, and potentially most important thing that has ever happened to mankind. And I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Whitley Strieber. Whitley, good evening, young man. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me back.
Well, how good is pretty good, Whitley?
Pretty good is, let's see, I have dinner,
Right.
Might be coming down with a cold.
Right.
That's basically pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah. You know what? I haven't gotten a cold in 5 years.
Neither have I, but I also haven't had a little baby grandson except for 1 year. And the last time I was roughhousing with him and pretending to be a grizzly bear, he had a cold.
Yeah, you're asking for it.
Oh, yeah, but there's no way I'm not going to play grizzly bear with my 1-year-old grandson.
Yeah,
so,
man. I'm
cold
so
or no cold, I'll get over it.
I'm so jealous. And we were talking about that the last time we were hanging out, grandkids. And Rita and I haven't experienced that yet.
It's a big deal, my friend.
Man. And I know
you think, grandkids are not. I mean, they're not your real kids, but yeah, they are.
Oh yeah,
and they are a big deal.
Yeah, that takes being a parent to the next level. I mean, seriously, being a parent is great, right?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
And the beauty of it is when he poops, you just give him to mom.
Man, yeah, I would be the best babysitter in the world. It doesn't matter.
You've got it written all over you, Jimmy. You're made to be a grandparent. You're going to also be an incredible sucker like I am.
Yeah.
All 3 kids know that they can basically get anything out of me that they can get away with.
Yeah, yeah. The same things, my grandparents, I milked it, man.
Me too.
Absolutely.
Just my older grandson on last Saturday, his mother says to him, absolutely, you can go out to lunch with Gaga. Absolutely no pizza. Of course, we go out and somehow or another we end up at the pizza place. and that afternoon she says, I know you got pizza because you have pizza on your face,
right?
But I don't know how you got it.
I mean, it's the first stop at that point. I mean,
right.
So there you go. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And when I'm around kids, there's something, this is really the truth. And you definitely show this, but youth is all in the mind. Getting old is all in the mind in that. And when you're around kids or puppies, right? You're around kids, it allows you to vicariously, live that life again and look at them and remind yourself, what it's like to be a kid. And I just refuse. Yeah. I just refuse to grow up. I do. I refuse. I realize. I'm 56. I'm fighting it, man. I'm fighting it. I'm not 56. I just refuse to capitulate. I'm just not going to do it.
Well, I'm 74, and I have not the slightest intention of growing up. Why should I grow up?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I still swim. I've got a replaced knee, so I'm out and about again, big time. I feel great.
And that, I look at, talking about age is just a number. There's no way that anybody would know that you're 74. That's a crazy number. You probably,
I know.
You never thought you'd
I'm always
get there.
seeing these people. I'm 72 years old and blah, blah. And I think, once I was in the grocery store, some old guy is creeping along and he says, how old are you, young man? We were talking. And I said, well, how old are you? He says, I'm 71. And I said, I'm 63. I didn't know what else to say.
I know, man. I know. It's all in the mind. And you represent that like no other. Let's get straight to it. We're going to be taking calls tonight, and we're going to mix in another great conversation and also hear from our audience, and that's going to be great, and I'm looking forward to it. But I do want to talk about a new world, and the obvious question that for you to start off with is why this book now? I mean, what is the contact and the communication that you have today, has it increased? Is there a reason for this type of book now?
Well, first, as soon as Annie passed away, not within weeks, it increased tremendously, and it had a lot to do with her. This is not only, if it is an alien thing at all, our dead are involved. The soul is real, and they are here. Period. That is my life experience, and I trust it because it's impossible for me to deny at this point. Now, as to timing, about 2 years ago, they started just going berserk about getting this book done because we don't actually know how to communicate with them. And I had never really put it together myself, but they illustrated to me very forcefully what the problem is, that if they came out, we would not be able, we'd start trying to talk to them, and it would be a mess. But there are reasons for that run really, really deep, that are about the whole core nature of how reality works and how minds work. And the book is about my experiences of getting past the blocks to communication. We're not going to be able to sit down across a table and talk to them. It isn't going to work. Even if it is possible for words to be said, we're not going to ever be able to know whether or not we mean the same things, even if we're saying, like my first Close Encounter, they had a machine that was saying in a very soft female voice, "What can we do to help you stop screaming?" Now, if you think about that, there's a lot wrong with that attempt. The female voice and the softness and calmness, that's okay. But the asking the question, what can we do to help you stop screaming, when I am in a room full of giant bugs, buck naked, and being just essentially attacked in all kinds of bizarre ways, the answer to that question was nothing. And therefore, the asking of the question was pointless. If they were going to use, and they could not speak, they don't speak, therefore this is what they had, and it just kept repeating and repeating and repeating. And that's in a very small scale, that would happen on a massive scale if they showed up, because it is not easy to be with them. It is very demanding. It is very challenging. And as I point out in the book, at times it can be dangerous. It's hard, but the rewards are tremendous. My life with them has become so rich. They are the most valuable thing I have ever known I could have in my life, in terms of intellectual and spiritual growth and emotional experience. It's really something incredible to have them in my life.
Now, the way that,
as long as I don't get eaten,
or
which I hopefully won't.
Well, see, that's the point of this question. The element of fear that has to be there for anybody going through this, including yourself, is something that is not intentional on their part. But how can it not be something, and how do you avoid that? How do you because now you're fine, right? You just said it's the most beautiful friendship and contact that you've ever had.
When they can show up in ways that I'm not fine. Believe me, there can be situations where I'm scared. I don't think would be a situation where I'm going to run screaming anymore or fight unless I am attacked. But I am going to experience fear, of course. And it's not normal fear. It's not the kind of fear you would have if you were
at the
face to face with a bear or something.
Right.
It's different. It's more like, Jeff Kripal, my co-author of Supernatural, is mentioned in the book, and he had the experience of sleeping in the same room with me at one point, which is interesting for people. Everyone thinks, oh, yes, this happens to Whitley, but it's not going to happen to me. The thing is, it often happens to Whitley, and when someone's around, it's going to happen to them too, and it happened that night. And Jeff had his experience of it was different from mine. He heard this tremendous crashing sound, like the whole world was crashing down around him, symbolic of how it felt in his mind and heart to suddenly realize that this world that he has lived in all of his life is not the whole world and maybe not even real. That was the first part. And then he hears a voice, his own voice, but from somewhere within his body saying, "Oh my God." And this is when the ego, which is part of our minds and part of our brains, faces the possibility of something, of a danger that is greater than death. And that is the real fear. And until we can understand that fear simply emerges automatically because of the nature of the relationship and isn't necessarily related to anything, we have a lot of trouble handling it. But I've had that fear many, many times in my life, and I'm still sitting here. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just nature saying, hey, this is really, really weird, and I'm really worried about it.
Now, I follow science as closely as my gray matter can, right? I'm not a physicist, but I follow science and I stay up on it. And modern physicists and theoretical physicists and cosmologists and string theorists, they are looking very closely now and speak a lot about the multiverse. And not only the multiverse, but an infinite verse, right? And you say in A New World that there's evidence of a mirror universe. I would always point to, when you say evidence, that's one thing. When I speak about it, I immediately go back to science and different physicists and the way that they speak about it today. And because the math says that this is the only way to explain a lot of things, that there is a multiverse out there. What evidence are you talking about?
Well, basically what happened is this. I went up to the Pine Ridge Reservation, the Lakota Sioux Reservation in South Dakota, for a UFO conference, very small, only 20 people or so. And while I was there, I ended up living in two different universes at the same time. I had a taste of this back in 2007, which I mentioned in the book. But what happened there was, when I closed my eyes, I could see very clearly another version of the same world we were in. Like when we would be driving down a highway, a graded highway, straight road across the fields. In the other world, the road was not graded. It followed the contours of the land. And so the result was, when I had my eyes closed, and I understand it, when my eyes are closed, it was like a virtual reality headset. It was that intense. And the road in the other world that we were more or less following curved off and went down a hill, but we went straight because we were on a graded road. It felt exactly like the car had taken flight. When, with my eyes closed, I looked up at the ceiling of the car, I saw the sky and the clouds. And it was absolutely amazing. Another lady in the car, this went on all weekend. And one other lady who was in the car was having the same experience for a couple of hours. But it went on with me all weekend. And, it was so unbelievably detailed. I could literally bend down on a roadside or anywhere I was and look at the rocks and stones and flowers and in great detail, and then open my eyes, and they were the same but different. And in the book, I go into why that may have been an experience of a mirror universe and why there is solid science to support that possibility. It was really the most extraordinary experience of my life. And I have to tell you, I've had a lot of extraordinary experiences in this life. I've been blessed with that. But this was beyond anything.
Was it the location?
Known.
Was it the location, or
was it just extraordinary?
Was it the location? Were there plant medicines involved, Whitley?
I'm not sure I'm following.
Plant medicines, Indians.
No. You mean drugs?
Yeah. Well,
no, I'm not into that at all.
Obviously not.
I'm not interested. I don't do drugs. Listen, a guy like me, why would I bother with drugs?
No, you're already there.
I mean, you're asking me that after. In fact, that's the first thing that came into your mind, right? And maybe it was drugs, but I have to tell you that there is no. I have no reason to.
And one of the reasons why I have to ask a question like that is with different research into plant-based medicines today, and specifically like ayahuasca or DMT or peyote, but ayahuasca specifically is the very consistent reports of those that go through the ceremony absolutely are in a parallel situation.
Yeah, but I was in both places at the same time. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the parallel universe.
Right.
As I understand ayahuasca, you're in it until the drug wears off.
That's right.
Well, there was nothing like that. I was in it if I wanted to be, and not in it if I didn't.
Now, so the first part of the question was, do you think it was the location?
Yes, I think it had a lot to do with the location because it faded as soon as I went off the reservation. As soon as I got about 20 miles south of the reservation, it was gone.
Did you ask anybody there on the reservation?
Yeah, sure. I talked to a lot of people about it.
And?
No one had ever experienced it who I talked to. And the only people who did experience it were people who were in the car with me. And in fact, in one case, this is so fantastic. We were at the Wounded Knee Memorial, where there is a graveyard for people who were either descendants of Wounded Knee, people who were at Wounded Knee, or were actually killed at the Wounded Knee in the 1890s. Excuse me. And this one guy kept walking up to me and standing beside me. I was looking down at the graves, and they would walk away and come back again. And here's why he was doing it. When he stood near me, he could see down into the graves and see the bones. But I couldn't. Now, I mean, that's sort of high strangeness by proxy.
Right.
It was really cool. I mean, so incredible. I love stuff like that.
Now, have you? Okay, now you're off the reservation. I just said that.
I am way off the reservation.
I can't believe I just said that.
I've been off the reservation for years. And your listeners, if they don't want off the reservation, they need to go have supper because they are off the reservation when I am on the show.
So now that you're off the reservation, have you been able to access this universe again?
Nope, I have not. Maybe a little bit once, but not like that. That was an absolutely premier experience of my life. I could see rivers flowing, clouds. I didn't see, and interestingly enough, I never saw people. I would see these little bright flashes in the distance from time to time, but I didn't see people. And I think that there was something preventing that from happening. There was a lot of ultra high strangeness associated with it that I wrote about as well. I mean, it just was marvelous. It was an absolutely you just don't have experiences like that.
And I'm letting my imagination go, wishing I was there. Are you saying that? I want to get this in before the break. Are you saying that it was the same location, right? It was different, but I mean, you could tell that there were elements.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was very clearly. If I was passing over a river or a stream rather in this world, in that world it was bigger. It was a big river.
Right.
I mean, it was there. It was all like that. Even the trees were different, but they were in the same places. If you know what I mean.
I do. It happened to me on Sunset Boulevard in 1985, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, but tell me about it.
I will say this. In Pasadena, I'm going to give this as quickly as I can. In my neighborhood where I lived for years, right? I drive across the street to take a shortcut through this neighborhood directly across the street that had trees, for maybe a 5 or 6 square block area, and I wanted to jet out on the other side. Okay, I got lost. I got lost in my own neighborhood, and I couldn't make it out to the edge of the trees. I almost ran out of gas. I spent the afternoon in like a 4 or 5 block square area. I panicked. I was hyperventilating. I'm looking at my gas gauge run down. Finally, somehow, I make it to the edge and pop out. I didn't even go where I was going. I went back home, walked in, panicked, and everybody was like, "Man, are you okay?" I didn't even want to tell anybody what just happened. Pointing across the street, I got lost right in there. And this was in Pasadena. This wasn't out in, Big Bear. This was in Pasadena. It's impossible to do what I did. And
I don't know. I lost in Pasadena sounds like a possibility to me.
And so the thing is, I look back and see back then, I didn't understand the things that I do today, right? I chalked it up to just I forgot how to make a left-hand turn. I don't know, but something else happened, and something kept me in there, and I really Whitley, I still can't explain it. And it's a difficult story for me to tell people because it just absolutely doesn't make any sense. Why didn't you just stay on one road, and just keep
I know
driving?
They do that. I mean, I get these people saying, "Well, why don't you have paranormal investigators hide behind your house and see if they can catch the visitors coming and going?" And I think to myself, I've been doing this for over 30 years, trying to catch the visitors coming and going. I have had a lot more than paranormal investigators, I can assure you, and have not succeeded. So, I just, people have to understand, high strangeness is not passive. This stuff is alive.
Right.
If it wants to be seen, it's going to be seen. And that's the main thing my book is actually about, is creating a situation where it does want to be seen. They do want to be seen because they know that they can be they can communicate. And
well, they're only going to take it so far, though, right? The reveal.
I have no idea how far they might take it. No idea, really. My sense of it is that initially it will be more like what mostly happens to me, which is non-physical and very subtle, and not so subtle that you don't know it's definitely there, but not like sitting across from you in a room or anything like that.
Yeah.
Or perhaps not abducting you and whipping you out into outer space or something and then leaving you hanging.
Well, and the other part is, and we got to take a break right here, but the other part is they know, when I say not, how far to take it, sitting down with a couple of cameras doing a multi-camera shoot and a sit-down interview like with Mike Wallace. That ain't going to happen.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not sure that it's impossible, but I'm also fairly sure that it's not going to happen that way.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Whitley Strieber. Night 3 of our Open Lines Week right here on Fade to Black. His new book is called A New World. The links for Unknown Country are right there at jimmychurchradio.com. Click, head over, register over at Unknown Country, and of course you can check out the new book too as well, A New World. It's right there. Going to take a short break, open up the phone lines, and continue the conversation when we come back right after the short break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox over on Twitter. You can come hang out with us over there. Any questions or comments tonight or any other night, hashtag F2BQ. Tonight is night 3 of our Open Lines Week here on Fade to Black. And tonight it's Whitley Strieber. Tomorrow night, Richard Dolan joins us. And Whitley's new book is called A New World. And his website, of course, is unknowncountry.com. And the link for Unknown Country is over at jimmychurchradio.com. And you can check out A New World when you go and visit Unknown Country. And let's get straight to it, Whitley. You ready to take some calls?
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's see. Who's up first? Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, this is Bob. Thank you for this, Jimmy. And Whitley, it's great to talk to you. Whitley, I read War Day, The Day After Tomorrow, Majestic, and back in those days, Wolf and the Hunger, back in those days, you scared the crap out of me. So War Day, I had nightmares for months. And I had a friend who came over and saw the cover of Communion and freaked out and told me about their abduction experiences. So look, just all of this is interesting, but it's not really what I'm after. What I'm after, Whitley, is something has changed in you, and your books are, I would say, more kind of positive and uplifting. What is the major source of this evolution?
A change in my relationship with the visitors. In 2015, Anne died in August. And I was grief-stricken. And she proceeded to come back in ways that were totally undeniable and very cleverly designed to be that, because she knows I'm, in spite of all the weird things that happened to me, I am a relentlessly skeptical human being. I never believe anything until it is staring me in the face, and that's exactly what she did. That's all in a book called The Afterlife Revolution. And that changed me profoundly, because I had had a lot of experiences before, including some stunning experiences with the dead. But when it is your wife, and you know it because it's her, it changes everything. My universe, my whole experience of reality changed. And then with her came the visitors in a totally new way. And it was not bad. It was hard. It's always hard. I mean, let me put it this way. Wherever they come from and whatever they are, things like stand-up comedy apparently do not work there. Let me put it. That's just
no,
they're not.
No, don't say that.
They're not going to be singing and dancing.
Okay.
The funniest story of that sort I ever heard about them was actually a psychiatrist who was living in Upper West Side Manhattan. She was a Swedish woman, and she was smoking a pipe in bed, and suddenly the closet door flew open, and a conga line of grays danced out and danced through the wall out into the air above West End Avenue. And the next thing she knew, her bed was on fire because she'd blown all the burning pipe tobacco out of her mouth into the bed. But that's one thing, and that's funny. But I was I was really very wary of them. But now I have been alone with them like I was when I was a child. I was alone with them a lot when I was a child. And it never occurred to me to be scared of them until I found out my dad was scared of them. And then I was scared of them. But I've been alone with them a lot in the past few years. And there's also a relationship with Anne and with the human dead involved. And it just turned into something that I consider beautiful. And I'm having a wonderful time with it. But listen, this has still got a dangerous edge to it. And I go into that in my book. I would never pretend otherwise. I would never say otherwise until we really understand very clearly what's going on here.
And there's and thank you for the call, Bob. And that was a great question.
Glad to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Bob. There's another element to this before I get to the next caller, is that I've heard this over and over again. My own experience. Would Communion have been the same book if it was a different cover?
No, the cover is a major part of the book. And the cover is a major part of the book because those huge eyes, when in real life, they reflect our innermost being. And the picture reminds you of how difficult that is to face. And that's why the picture arrested so many people's attention and took them deep into themselves to the hidden memories of their experiences and encounters with the visitors. The picture was a wake-up call of gigantic proportions that swept across the whole world.
That book, speaking of Pasadena, that book in my bedroom was always face down. I couldn't have it face up. And I'm not.
Well, I'm looking at the picture right now.
So am I.
Hanging on my wall in my office. There are two pictures of two ladies there. One of them is the Communion lady, and then the other one is Anne. And whenever I'm working, I can just glance up, and there they are.
There it is.
My girls.
Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. This is Kevin from West Virginia.
Hey, Kevin. How are you tonight? Say hi to Whitley.
Hello, Whitley. How are you doing?
Well, fine, thank you. And you?
Pretty good.
Is that it? Just pretty good? So you and Whitley are just pretty good tonight.
We're pretty good.
No,
tonight.
I'm not pretty good. I'm really very good. Only I'm having a cold rolling in from playing Grizzly Bear with my grandson too much.
Yeah, Kevin's probably got the same story. Kevin, what do you have for Whitley tonight?
I just want to talk a little bit about the book that taught me years and years ago when it was first released, The Coming Global Superstorm by Art Bell and Whitley Strieber. Whitley, since they did or based the film The Day After Tomorrow on the book, what are your thoughts?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of truth in Superstorm. The Day After Tomorrow compresses things a little bit, I think. And I also think that we're at a kind of tipping point, and I don't really know what is going to happen. In Superstorm, what happens is there is a massive heating and then a sudden drop-off and cooling of the planet. But it all happens somewhat quickly, and in the movie even quicker. In the real world, what happens is there's Arctic melt and heating in the Arctic. Methane begins to come up out of the ocean where it is held in methane hydrates on the continental shelves at a constant temperature of below 47 degrees. It melts and releases and turns into gas at 47 degrees. And when that happens, pardon me,
Yes.
I had to turn on my cough button there for a minute and sneeze because I did not want to sneeze at you guys.
Well done. Very professional.
Anyway, getting back to the methane hydrates, they melt. It turns into methane. It comes pouring in trillions of tons out of the oceans. This is a hugely active gas. It traps heat close to the ground. The temperature rises dramatically, but over about a 30-year period, that methane dissipates. And then you have a planet that is extremely hot, but there is nothing holding the heat in anymore. The heat irradiates into space. It gets very cold. There's a lot of rain at that point, and one summer comes where the ice does not melt over the northern half of the northern hemisphere, and another ice age begins. Or there's another scenario now. The heating is happening so intensely and so fast right now that doesn't happen. The heat, there's so much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that the methane just adds heat, and when the methane dissipates, it's still hot. And very frankly, that's an extinction event. We're not there after that.
Yeah, Dane.
Would you like some more good news?
Yeah. Dane Wigington has been talking about the methane aspect of what is trapped, and if it ever does release, it is lights out, and there's really nothing that can be done. And it is releasing now, but not that fast yet. That's right. Kevin, thank you for the phone call, man.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you, Whitley.
Well, thank you.
Go Beckley Tappy.
Go Beckley Tappy.
That's what I'm talking about right there. I watched The Day After Tomorrow last month. I watched it beginning to end. It was just something that it was one of those moments, and I was in the mood, and I watched it. And what struck me about that, Whitley, was the suddenness of it. And that part, it's just like one day things are cool, the next it's not, and it's not in our control.
It's not in our control now.
Right, that's what I'm saying. That's a crazy, because we always like to think that there's something we can do. An asteroid.
Well, I think there probably was and may still be. I mean, it's not over yet, but as far as every day that passes, it's going to get harder to fix this. There's no question about that.
Yeah, no question.
And we're leaderless on this issue. The best leader the world has is a 16-year-old girl, and let's face it, she has no political clout whatsoever. All she can do is wake people up to some extent, but there's no one, and I'm not blaming, by the way. I got a crazed email from someone that I hated all Republicans because I believe in climate change. I do not hate all Republicans because I believe in climate change. Obama did not do much for the environment either in this direction. He just ignored this subject. And so did Clinton, and they all do. They all have ignored it. Because it is so big, it takes more leadership than just a president. It takes a whole world coming together. And the Paris Climate Accord is not enough. That's not the world coming together. That's another version of the UN, where we sit around and talk and drink coffee and eat fancy dinners, and then all go back to our home countries thinking, oh, well, we've done a good job, and nothing whatsoever changes.
Right.
So we need real world leadership, dynamic, powerful leaders who are charismatic enough to carry the day in a lot of different countries.
Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, it's Paul from sunny Southern Oregon, down here in Grants Pass. Whitley, we're having an end-of-the-world barbecue when the methane clay rates cook up. You're more than welcome. So are you, Jimmy. Bring the family.
Would love to.
Well, listen, I've got too many
Okay.
grandkids. I am not interested in end of the world anything. I am for the future. I live with the
Here's
future.
hoping.
My future is in my family's house.
I've read your work, and the question that comes to my mind, and I've had a couple of other people talk about experiences where these creatures are just coming through the walls, or coming through openings that form in the walls. Where are these people coming from, and how are they getting here? And what is
we've been
causing you
dealing
to
with
be the
this.
person that gets this?
We've been dealing with this for 70 years, and that is a premature question because nobody knows how the hell is this happening. No one does. Every once in a while, there is something that happens that has the logic of life. In other words, it's like stuff that we live with every day. Like there's a documentary out there called Witness of Another World with Jacques Vallée, done by a Argentinian director, Alan Stievelman, which is about back 40 years ago when this man who is now an adult was a 12-year-old boy living in the Pampa and in the Pampas. He saw a fog bank when he was out looking for some cattle, and he walked into the fog bank, and there was this UFO with a ladder coming down. So he's a little boy, he climbs up the ladder to see what's going on. And what does he see? This really tall, weird creature in some kind of a suit looking down at him, and beside it, a smaller creature carrying out a cattle mutilation. He tries to walk closer inside the thing, but there's a barrier that won't let him through. After a while, he goes down, and he can never get his life together again. It affects him somewhere on a spiritual or psychological level that he literally can't get his life together again. And all these years later, he's living in isolation. He stays away from people. He's basically a hunter-gatherer now. And so Alan Stievelman, who's a very insightful man, decides, well, I'm going to take him and reconnect him with his indigenous relatives, the Guneri people. And they fly across Argentina to this tribe. And the people in the tribe have no trouble with what happened to him. It's just business as usual to them, and he begins a whole new level of life. Now, that's a situation where it sort of happened normally on our level. That is not what happens to me. I had one situation like that. I woke up in a room full of giant bugs who were really diddling with me in some very unpleasant ways, and I was not amused, to say the least. Mostly my experiences are very brief. These beings, they do walk through walls. They can walk through a wall and be completely solid when they come through the wall. I've seen it. Other witnesses at my cabin, when we had a cabin in upstate New York, they saw and experienced phenomena like that all the time. They can be invisible. We have had that experience and become visible and become invisible. And we just don't know how all that works, period.
Yeah, Witness to Another World was so emotional. And to see the tears, the emotion of a life changed. And what I thought was so unique, and I'm glad that Alan, we had Jacques on the show too as well to talk about this. The approach to it, when you span a few decades and you see somebody mature, has grown up, but basically in isolation. In that when he was 12, he didn't have access to UFO movies or research or famous cases. This was just his experience, and he didn't know how to describe it. He didn't know what he was looking. He had nothing to relate it to, and which added to the the foundation of the story for sure. But it's how somebody with that isolation to society is forced into dealing with something that traumatic that he didn't understand, and he dealt with it in his own ways. Tremendous film. Just a
tremendous film. But listener, you ask a really good question, because what you're asking is what basically is going on here. And the answer is what's going on here is happening at a level, and at a level that we are not usually living at. In other words, it's some other level of life, and in ways that we don't understand.
That's right. Paul, thank you for the phone call.
Take care, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And the other part about Witness to Another World is Jacques' insight. And to have Jacques be able to, research and study and be able to follow up on a case that he had researched from the very, very beginning. And the reconnect of those two, wow, that was...
It was really good. Yeah, it was really very wonderful.
Just so great. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. This is Tarita. How are you doing?
Hi, Tarita. How are you? Say hi to Whitley.
Hi, Whitley. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Listen,
I'm great, thanks.
Tarita, we're going to be headed towards a break in 4 minutes, so let's just get straight to a question. What do you have for Whitley?
Okay, so what I sent you some videos on your group page. Did you get a chance to look at those?
Are you talking to me? To Whitley?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm talking to
when you say group page, I don't know what you mean.
Okay, well, anyway, let's just get to the point here. Yesterday, I was out researching. I had seen an orb that came down, or a light that had came down on top of Spearfish on this mountain, so I went up yesterday to go look at it. And it was getting an evening time, and I was coming back down, and I saw, like, this flicker over to the right of me, so I walked over to it. And I posted these videos in your group, and I walked over to it, and there was this skull laying there. And the whole area looked like it had been, like the grass had been, or whatever it was up there was, like, flat. And then there was, like, the whole area was kind of, like, burned a little bit, or I don't know. Anyway, the point is that I found this skull, and I thought it was of an animal, so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to pick it up. And I took it back with me. It was too dark to look at it. By the time I got back to my car, I tried to look at it. I didn't really, couldn't see. So I got home and I put the light on it. And as I looked at the skull of it, it was had these very intricate symbolic engravings on them. And I just, like, the vibration I got right away was that Star Nation had left this behind, that when they had come down, for whatever reason, they left that behind for me to find. I mean, they led me up there. I was up there for almost 3 hours walking on this mountain, just researching the area, and then these orbs were coming down, these lights were coming down from the sky above Spearfish and Sturgis and dropping down. There was like 20 of them. I counted 17 of them. And so I was kind of stayed out till it was dark, and then as I proceeded to come back, that's when I found that skull. So the vibration that I got from Star Nation was that was kind of their gift that they gave to me, just to let me know that they led me to it, and that's all it is, and that's what I'm sharing with the UFO community. I don't need any backlash. I don't need people telling me it's just the structure of how the brain is connected and the skull, whatever. This is not, I need to get somebody to look at this. I need some DNA samples on it. The tissue on it, there's a little piece of tissue left on it. It's like a wing of a butterfly that's on it. And if I sent that video, if you can look at it, I tried to get as much close to it. You can see there's like little, like there's letters in there. There's like, if you look at it, you can see like outlines of people like holding hands. I don't know. It's just a really interesting, my information that Star Nation told me was that when the energy left that being and that skull behind, it came out when that crack was underneath it where it connects the skull. When that energy left out of it, it left that pattern on there, and that it's not Earth origin, it's from them, and that's some kind of like a encrypted message, or it was just when the energy left the body, ejected, that's what it left behind. And so it's just that simple, and I would I was just trying to share it with you and your group and your people and your researchers and everybody that you network with.
Well, where is this video? That's what I don't understand.
She said it's
your
on.
Group.
It's
But what is my group? I've got a website. I've got Facebook pages. I've got all kinds of stuff. Where did you?
I didn't have access to anybody else's. I just put it in Jimmy's post because I figured everybody that he networks with would be able to see it.
Oh,
it's in Jimmy's thing.
Oh,
okay.
It's in mine.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
I did see Tarita. I've got to head towards. I've got to take a break right here. Thank you for the phone call, and we'll post up the video over in Twitter. Thank you so much, Tarita. It's a pretty interesting find, by the way.
It's not from here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tarita. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take our break right here. I'm right up against it. Whitley, stay right there. We'll get the videos up, and Whitley, I'll send you the links via email.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, night 3 of our open lines. Tonight, it's Whitley Strieber. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Whitley Strieber taking your calls, your conversation. And before I get back to the calls, I wanted to do this, Whitley. This is a question sent in from our producer, Renee. And she says, Jimmy, please ask Whitley what he thinks of the recent statement by Costa Macraeus of ET Let's Talk that aliens have dropped their non-interference policy with humans and will help us save our society and our planet if we request their assistance.
That's right. It's exactly what my book's about.
That's the short answer. Are you going to run for politics?
No, I don't. This isn't about politics. It's about a whole new world. It has nothing to do with what we now think of as politics.
Right. And is this what we've been waiting for?
There's never going to be a moment when an alien sits down with the president or a panel of scientists. I don't think. This is extremely personal. It has to do with each individual. As far as I understand the visitors, they would like each individual person to have a different relationship with them, and they are ready. They would like as many different relationships as there are people, personalities, and souls, and they will help us. I show a couple of examples in the book of scientists who are in there by name, who have been helped by the visitors in major ways that affected life on Earth, and that can spread. And people in the scientific communities, intellectual and academic communities, do not have to come out and say, now I am a believer in the visitors and I am going to do this. They can do it privately. Everyone can do it privately in their own life, in their own home, in their own family, and build this relationship in a coherent way that works for them.
Where can everybody get the book?
Well, right now it's basically on Amazon. It is available as Kindle. It's available in paperback, and there's some screwy thing on Amazon though, which says that you won't get it for 2 months, but actually they're shipping right away. It's just, there are often glitches when something just first starts out on Amazon.
Gotcha.
And it should be available as an audiobook next week.
Who's doing the read?
You're talking to him.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I got to do my own readings for this and for Afterlife Revolution. These books are too personal. I can't give them to a reader. I read them myself.
Rita is going to be listening to Whitley Strieber as we go to bed. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? You're live.
Hello?
Yes, you're live.
Hello.
You're live. Who's calling?
Oh, hey, this is Ron that's calling from Dallas, Texas.
How are you, Ron?
I'm doing all right. And how about you two guys?
Yeah, boy, it's Whitley Strieber. It's Fade to Black. It doesn't get any better, Ron. What do you have for Whitley tonight?
Yes, I have a question. Is that I'd like to know is I listen to a lot of these programs on the radio and that, and I never hear anybody talk about defending yourself against some of these aliens. And I've had problems with them for years. And by the way, I'll let you know, I live, just outside of Dallas, but I work down in Dallas. But I just recently retired from the police department. And I've been having problems with them. In fact, actually, I ended up getting
What kind of problems? Because I had a lot of problems with them, I have to tell you.
Well, not only that, they've also put some implants in me, and those I found out through MRI, and the MRI system that I use was for research purposes. It's a highly powerful one. It's not open for patients in it, but I know the people that run it, and we found 6 of them in me in it. But one night, actually it was early in the morning. It seems like they always come back around 2 to 5 a.m.
Yep, that's right.
One day, one of them, there was actually 2 in the room, they were trying to put something down my throat, and apparently I woke up and I grabbed this one by the arm, and I was just punching the heck out of this thing right in the head, punched it out several times, and I was trying to do what's called a takedown move. So I could grab, which I know for one thing is that I wasn't going to use my service revolver because I know they have apparently a way that they could prevent that from working. So I went old school, and I was waiting for these guys whenever they came back and tried something. That what I did is I took a round wooden stick about 2 feet long, and I made a sharp point on one of them. I figured they probably wouldn't detect it. It looked like a piece of furniture, and I was going to stick it with this thing. So I tried to when I grabbed this one by the arm, and I was hitting it, I tried to reach behind me to grab where this wooden stick was, and I was sticking, but he broke away, and both of them was able to go straight up through the ceiling, just right out of the house. And I did not see them try to maybe move some kind of equipment or something like they had on them to eventually to dissipate out of the room and go through the roof. Now, the one thing is that if you guys have ever been in combat or you've been in situations where you're fighting for your life, if you have a buddy with you, he's going to help you out. The other one just stood in the corner, no emotions, nothing. And the one that I was punching out made no sound, nothing, like no emotions whatsoever.
Let's start with the first part of that question, Ron, which was, is there a defense if you need to have a defense, Whitley? Is there something somebody can do?
Well, years ago, I decided I wanted to do this. In other words, I went out into the woods in the dark of the night time and again to demonstrate the fact that I wanted to do it. So I have had a sort of a fundamentally different experience, but I do know people who have had experiences similar to this listener's. The difference is that I don't know but 1 or 2 cases where it has been that physical. Mostly they were drop in and out of the physical in a second. You say they went up through the roof at one point, and that's not unusual. The fact that they were staying near you physically long enough for you to do anything threatening toward them at all is very unusual. I would think that there was something behind that. And as far as one of them having no emotions, there's a variety of entities, and some of them are they're not. They're very simple. Let me put it that way. Others are much more complex, and sometimes when you get one of the ones that's a really fully realized creature, real being, this is someone who is at least as smart as you are and a highly developed personality. But you weren't seeing those. These were someone at kind of a lower level of being. I have thought that the physical ones might be very sophisticated machines, all of them, even the ones with emotions or apparent emotions. I'm not sure about that. I go into that in the book fairly extensively. As far as defense against them, when I've had hard times with them, my basic thing has been to confront them, but not violently, because I know it doesn't work. I know people inside this thing who have had violent confrontations with them, and what then happens in those lives is that a guy might be ordered to arm his missiles and go into an attack posture, and the next thing this pilot knows, they're in his house, and his kids are saying they're aliens in my living bedroom, and that happens. And I know of people who have been killed in this situation, not children, but people who have been in confrontational situations who have been killed. And it is dangerous. It can be dangerous. I would never try to sugarcoat that at all or explain it away in any way whatsoever. What I can say is what I have lived, and I have lived this from having a very confrontational, wary, and difficult relationship with them to what I have now, which is essentially a teacher-student relationship where they are teachers and they really are teaching me. And what I did was I thought to myself, this is in some deep way that is not apparent necessarily on the surface about my soul and about the soul. And what is my soul like? And I built a strong soul the old-fashioned way, through love, compassion, and humility. You pick up the New Testament and you can figure it out very quickly. And I get respect and I get love, frankly. I get a very determined attempt to communicate with me and teach me. And I have no intention of raising a hand in violence at all anymore. I've been there and done that. And it had no meaning. It was just useless.
There you go, Ron. Yeah, I'm sorry, Whitley, did I interrupt?
Yeah, there's one thing I want to add. There's a story in my book about a man who had a violent confrontation with them and what happened to him. And you should read that because you need to try not to have a violent confrontation with them. And they will goad you. They will goad you. They will make it worse. They will like poking at an ant bed. If you've been violent to them in the past and they come back and they're loaded for you and you're not violent, they will try to make you violent. You have to fight that inside yourself when it happens. That's all I can say. And it's hard as hell, and it is going to take a long time. And I'm not telling you it's easy, because it's not.
Thank you for Oh, yeah, Ron, I was going to say thank you for the phone call.
Oh, okay.
Did you have a really quick, just a follow-up?
Well, the thing is that, I took a lot of pictures because, I've been carved up just like a piece of Swiss cheese, and I got tired of that, so that was the reason why when I woke up like this, I defended myself. I mean,
no, of course. Who wouldn't?
There's a point where you just got to say enough is enough. If you want to sit down, have a conversation, talk about the universe, fine. I'm into that because I'm into science and I'm, into astronomy and everything. But, to have yourself all carved up like that, and I know that I know they're mad at me, and I sense that, and they want something back. because I took something from them and they want it back. Well, they're not going to get it back. Not without a fight. It's mine now. You took from me, I take from you. That's the way I am.
Right. Well, like Whitley said, compassion, nonviolence, and I hope.
Am I going to live the rest of my life
patience.
like this?
I mean, it takes patience. It's not going to be
right.
easy, especially if you already had violent confrontations with them. It took me years to where they calmed down.
There you go,
Okay.
Ron. Enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you for the phone call.
Just quickly, you're not going to win if you keep fighting them. They're just going to come back and back and back.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Thank you so much, Ron. Have a great night. And the question of a defense has come up so many different times, and I understand for people that are having these experiences that they're not comfortable with it. I mean, it's not easy, and some don't want it, and that's they need to. I don't know if they want to karate chop.
They're going to have to. We're going to have to just do what we can. I think if enough of us learn to handle this in our own way, it's going to get all easier for everybody. But right now, there are a lot of people like this poor guy who just called. I mean, sounds like a strong, tough guy who's having a real problem. I respect that.
Right. Let's go.
And I can't say to him, "Oh, you have to buy some kind of aluminum foil cap or something." That is not true. This is a very, very hard, very serious situation. And you can, with effort, I think, make something worthwhile in your life of it, because I have done that. And I know other people who have, too. But when it starts out hard, it is difficult. And it's obviously hard for him. It was hard for me, too, at first. Very hard.
Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hello, Jimmy. This is the Star Rider in Staten Island. How you doing?
How you doing, Joe? Say hi to Whitley. What do you have for Whitley tonight, Joe?
What do I have? First, I want to say thank you, sir. It's an honor to speak to you.
Absolutely, Joe.
Also, I want to say that, Whitley, I know you've been through it. I know you've been through a lot of pain out there. And I feel it a bit myself. I just quote, well, not really. I just like to make a comment about this ascension thing that's going on. A lot of people are talking about it, and it's true, and some people are going through that at this time, and I hear about it. And some of Jimmy's guests, I've seen some Twitter stuff about it. I won't mention any names, though. But I'll say this. I'd like to comment, if you would allow me to. People are having this ascension thing, but it's not an end in itself. It's not to have some euphoric, transcendent, gushy experience that you could, dwell in the land of Oz, To me, I believe it's an empowerment for us to equip us, to really maybe clean up some of this cosmic mess we're walking through. Like some of this drain in the swamp in Washington. I believe there's a few other swamps that need to be drained too out there. What do you think, Whitley?
Thank you so much, Joe. Yeah,
I don't know if we should drain the swamp in Washington, because I've been around swamps that have been drained and they stink. So we're better off leaving that swamp where it is. This is not going to be easy. The previous listener, when he said, I'm on a chat with some of my fans at the same time we're talking, and someone says, I heard the desperation in his voice when he asked, will the rest of my life be like this? And this is a huge question. It is a question for all mankind, actually. It is the question. And we have to live with that question. I'm not going to answer it for you tonight. I can't. Because nobody can answer it. We have this here. This is here. It is what it is. And we're going to have to make our place in it. In A New World, I talk about the place I've made for myself in it. there's a statement in the book that I think it is the single most important thing ever said about this experience by anybody. It was said by Colonel Philip Corso, the intelligence officer who had an encounter with the visitors on White Sands. And you read his stuff, and some of it seems completely off the wall, and you read about him, and there's all kinds of crap about him out there on the internet, et cetera, and so forth. But he said this, and this is the truth. He said, they told him what is on offer for us is a new world if we can take it. And what's happening to that other listener in the night is part of if we can take it. And what has happened to me is part of, and to so many other people. I mean, I had semen extracted from my body against my will.
Right.
And that's hard. Or a woman having an egg taken or being shown a baby that she cannot put her arms around and love, that is hers. That's horrible. It's horrible.
Well, Joe brought...
on the other hand, they're here. And
Joe,
they do have a lot to offer. That is also true.
Joe brought up one point about ascension, and there's all this talk about ascension and what we have to rise to. And there's a lot of expectations behind that. With your development and your maturity, is that part of the ascension that Joe speaks of and that others talk about? Let's get from 3D and skip 4D and go straight to 5D, and we're going to have there's a lot of talk about this.
I know that working on a strong soul makes your experience better. That has been what happened in my life. That, I was just a typical, totally pretty egotistical and sort of unexamined person when I first met the visitors. The first real lesson they gave me was a lesson in humility. And I took that to heart, and I decided, I understand this is a lesson, and I am going to take it to heart, and I am going to open myself to more lessons. I want to learn. And there followed a lifetime of lessons in how to build a strong soul. And the better I got at it, and the more I worked at it, at leading an examined life and looking at my life every single day of my life, the better my relationship with them became. That's as simple as that.
Is it an endless staircase?
Well, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm ascending a staircase. I'm just here doing what I can to make my life livable and good. That's what I want. I want a good life. And, I lost my wife, and I'm mighty lonely, frankly, because of that. And she was a deeply, we were like more than joined at the hip. And but I have them in my life, and I have her in my life now too, in a different way. And I'm trying to make what I can out of what I have, and I want it to be good. I want it to be good. And if in the end I get eaten, then too bad. I went down the wrong path. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're here to stay in my life and after my life. I don't think this does not end with death. They will be there also, because they are fully invested in this experience of being, and they are in our lives, both in the physical and in the non-physical, and probably primarily in the non-physical.
It's funny that you say when and Joe, thank you for the phone call. When you say, I may be eaten, there are atheists out there that will say, well, you just achieved your place in evolution.
Yeah, well, I've listened. Before this happened to me, if you had asked me whether or not I was an atheist, I would have said, I'm an atheist who believes in the soul, but I'm not. I'm secular. I'm not buying into the religious proposition at all. But now I have seen that every real religion in the world, and I include in that Islam, because there's two types of surah in Islam, the Mecca surahs and the Medina surahs. And if you read the Mecca surahs, which are the ones about love and life, they're very beautiful. The Medina ones, when Muhammad was fighting in battle, are very violent. And I unfortunately, the Islamic extremists, those are the only ones that matter to them, apparently. But the only ones that matter to me are the Mecca surahs. And Buddhism, of course, and Hinduism and Christianity all have ways within them, if you can find them, to build a strong soul. For me, Christianity is the best because that's my religion. That's what I grew up with and what I understand, or I think I understand. And I use the life and words of Christ as my guiding light and my bellwether to see how I'm doing. And the master of the key, who I met in the Delta Chelsea Hotel in Toronto in 1998. And I asked him, when I realized I was sitting there in front of a true master. And I don't know where he came from. And when he left, I never saw him again. I wrote a book about him called The Key, which is just a transcript of our conversation. He said, I asked him, what is sin? And he said to me, these are immortal words. He said, sin is denial of the right to thrive. And if you look at your life, and what am I doing that involves the health and happiness of other people? And you can see easily where you are making people better and where you are diminishing their lives. And then you know who you are and where you stand. And, so to me, that's what it's about.
It's very simple, actually.
It's simple, but it's damn hard.
It's hard.
It's Catholics have confession for a reason.
Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Whitley Strieber. Night 3 of our call-in week. Absolutely tremendous conversation going on tonight. If you're on hold, stay right there. More of your phone calls after this short break. 747-228-2051. Stay with us. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What a great conversation going on between all of you and Whitley Strieber tonight. Night 3 of our Open Lines Week here on Fade to Black. His new book is called A New World. You can pick it up right there on Amazon. And Whitley, I've got so many calls on hold. Are you ready to get straight back to it?
Sure. I'm here.
You having a good time?
Yeah, I am. I have to tell you, I'm thinking of that listener's struggling there. And, and that meant a lot to me. I don't want to say read my book. This is so hokey, but it would maybe be a good idea for him to pick up a copy of it and at least look through it and see if there isn't something he can find some definition for himself in. I've been down that road. I know where he is.
Right. And I went down it not quite the same. But I had something in my room back in 1995, and I was ready. It took about 15 minutes for me to be able to move. And when I did, after this stare down, I was ready for some Bruce Lee action. That was my intention.
Yeah.
And
I know the feeling.
Right. And I spun over, turned on the lamp to my left on the nightstand. And when I went back to the right, dude's gone. But my intention, maybe he knew that, but my intention was the opposite of compassion. It was more about warfare.
What do they expect if they scare the hell out of us and we're not hostile, we're crazy. Of course we're going to be hostile. I was hostile as hell.
Right. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
This is Corey.
Hey, Corey, how are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you guys?
What do you think, Corey? Take a wild guess. First two don't count. Take three.
First two don't what?
Your first two guesses.
Well, okay. Sorry, I had to be like quiet. So
yes, and you're doing good. Say hi to Whitley, Corey.
Hi, Whitley. This is so cool. I bought your book in '87 when I was like 10 years old.
Okay.
That's a bit young.
So I read it. But what I'd really love to know is your relationship with Annie, how it's going. And I mean, I know this sounds a little strange for other not readers, because I read, but other people who might not know about the plan that you had with her before one of you, when you know that one of you would pass away. I do.
Well, that's right. I'll tell about that.
I would love to hear that. I would love to hear it. Back in the
90s, we had an experience in the cabin where some people started to show up and meditate with me at night, and they were, at times, one of them actually became physically visible and touchable at one point. I even smelled his skin to see if he was real, and he was damn real. He hadn't bathed in a long time. It tells you something about the world of the dead you might not want to know. In any case, these people made it clear that they were from life between lives, that they were going to come back into this life. And so we decided at that time that we would, with all we had seen, and other people would see dead people at the cabin when the visitors were there. We were getting all kinds of letters about this. Annie said at one point, this has something to do with what we call death, which was a huge insight at the time. And so we decided that one of us is going to die first, right? The one with the worst karma is the one that is going to die second. Believe me, that is true. In any case, that the one who died first would come back, but not to the one who was still alive, would come back to friends and contact them and tell the friends to contact the person who was still alive in the marriage. And we told no one, absolutely no one about this. In fact, until Anne started doing it, I had actually forgotten it. It wasn't even in my mind until 9:30 the night. It was a few days before I remembered it, but at 9:30 on the night of Anne's death, I was sitting in the living room and I was just devastated. I was sitting there devastated.
I would be too.
Yeah.
I would be too.
And I was saying in my mind, Annie, if you still exist, please give me some kind of a sign. The phone rings. It's a friend, Belle Fuller. And she says, Whitley, I just had the funniest thing happen. Is Anne all right? Because I heard her say in my mind, in my ear, call Whitley. And I said, Belle, Anne died at 7:15 or 7:45. And that was the first one. And there were a half dozen of those calls. It's all in the Afterlife Revolution book. And eventually, at some point in the next week or so, I remembered what we had decided to do. And I thought, oh, my God, Annie is doing it. And that was just the beginning. It became this beautiful, exquisite thing, and much more to it than that. And I left this certain that the dead live. We live on. We do not. The body is not the end of the story.
Did you, Whitley? Let me jump in. Thank you for the phone call, Corey. Whitley, did you? Yeah, you can stay right there for a second.
Sure.
But did you? Of course, it's probably impossible. But did it calm you down? Did you get some relief? Because
it was
obviously
the most moving thing that I can imagine. It was so moving. I mean, my love affair with my wife is still the center of my life.
Right.
I mean, I'm sitting here with both rings. One on my ring is on my ring finger, and her ring is beside it on my pinky finger. Because the way I look at it now, we're still married, only we only have one body between us. And happens to be the one I run most of the time.
Wonderful.
Right on.
That's wonderful.
Corey, thank you so much, man, and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Whitley. You rocked my world tonight. It was so
good.
wonderful to talk
In
to
a
you
good
both.
way, I hope.
Yeah, well, yes, absolutely. And I just one last question, but I know you don't like that. What about the white moth?
The white what?
Is there a moth or a butterfly?
Oh, no, it was a moth, and it would show up at incredible, opportune moments. In other words, I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, giving a lecture about Anne and about our experiences together. One of the first times it happened, and the surveillance cameras were on in the apartment. I mean, I'm camered up, of course, and not that it helps. I've never gotten a damn single frame of the visitors in all these years. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. And the white moth flies across just as I mention Anne's name, and a text comes in to my phone saying that there's movement. And I look at the text after the lecture, and just at the moment when I was saying Anne's name, it flew across the field of cameras, field of vision. And what's important about this is that Annie, two things had happened. In January, before she died, Annie probably already knew. She was a very advanced soul, and she probably already knew she was going to die, and she maybe knew exactly when. But she began to get me to memorize a certain poem by W.B. Yeats called Song of the Wandering Aengus, and she wanted me to memorize that. And when I couldn't memorize it at first, she cried, and she didn't usually cry, and so I did. I memorized. I know it by heart. It is in my heart now. And after I died, and the white moth started to appear, and I thought about the poem. There are lines in the poem about a white moth, and then I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. Her favorite short story of mine was called The White Moths, and it's about a woman who dies and discovers that she is dead. And I realized that it was all built by my wife in this life to be a signal for me that she would send back after she died. And the lines are, when white moths are, I don't want to say the whole poem tonight, although it's very short. When white moths are on the wing and the moth-like stars are flickering out, those are the two lines in the poem. And then there's the story, the white moths. And then the white moth would come at incredibly opportune times. Like I was giving a lecture about Anne before 20 or 30 people, and then they go up to the lunchroom at Esalen Institute in Northern California, and they're sitting there all at a table talking, and a white moth comes and flies in circles in February around the table and then just disappears. Then we're having a final, it's a conference, a 5-day conference. We're having the final conference banquet. We're all sitting together. We're talking about the conference, and someone's talking about the white moth and how it came to the table and how cool that was and how unlikely. And, they're mostly academics and scientists. They're not really people who sort of expect experiences like that. And all of a sudden, here's the white moth again in front of the whole conference, all of the people at the banquet flying around the banquet room. And then, not only that, there's a podcast on my website, unknowncountry.com, by Jeremy Vaney, and it started in 2014, and Anne was crazy about Jeremy. She thought he was brilliant. The white moth, he's there at this conference, lands on his head. And we take pictures of the white moth on Jeremy's head. Then it takes off, flies toward a big rock fireplace, and it's just gone. Gone.
Tremendous.
Now,
Tremendous.
This is, and there are people, I've heard some kind of creepy podcasters laughing about, he thought a bug was something or other. And it's a real thing, and it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. The beauty of that, of the dead trying to come back to us and to tell us that there is a bridge, is a beautiful thing. It's to be respected.
And not ignored.
And not ignored, no. And, one of the first things I heard from her after she passed away was, it looks from here like you're all intentionally ignoring us.
Tremendous.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, it is. It's tremendous. It's powerful. And you can't, if it's there, so many, and I was guilty of this, ignore things. And if you take the time to just stop and recognize what may be happening, that's the beauty of it all. So many of us allow it just to pass us by.
Yeah, we live. We don't live. We let life pass by. You got to live. You gotta capture the moment. You got to.
You have to. You have to. You have to. And life is full of those types of synchronicities and contact and conversation, and you don't take the time. And so the other part, Whitley, and everybody that's on hold, I'll get to you in 30 seconds. Just let me get this thought out. There are so many out there that don't live a life of wonder. They live a life of 2D, wake up, go to bed, and that's all there is to life. And I don't want to go down that road. Just stop, slow it down, and recognize what may be happening around you. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. It's Brian. Hello, Whitley.
Hey.
Great conversation.
Absolutely, Brian.
Tonight.
Absolutely. What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I wanted to ask Whitley. Hi, Whitley. I wanted
Hello.
to ask if, I think over the last couple of months, I think I've heard you discuss briefly meditation, and I was wondering if you thought that your meditation practice over, I guess I don't know what that is, but do you think that's affected any of this?
Yeah, it's the center of everything. If that hadn't done that, had that practice, none of this would have happened. I was, and if you want to learn about it, it's in A New World in detail. You'll learn everything you need to know about it, and also how to take it farther, everything, and without spending any money, because it doesn't cost anything. It's easy to do, and you can learn it in 5 minutes. You just have to keep at it. But yeah, it's called the sensing exercise, and I do it at 11 at night and at 3 in the morning every night.
3 a.m. What? Now, were you doing meditation before?
Yes, I started in 1970, and
okay.
And unfortunately, I know that half of you are saying, "Gee, in 1970, I didn't even exist," but there were people around then. Not many, but we were there. And I was doing meditation starting in April of 1970. And I've been doing it pretty much every night since. I mean, I've obviously missed a few nights, but I basically do it pretty much every night. And I've done it sometimes during the day, and I do it sometimes in the day and as well. But I do it a lot, actually.
Yeah.
I do it a lot.
Thank you. I was really interested in that. I know I heard you talking about it.
Let me explain to you why it causes this to happen, because I do know that when you place the attention, I call it the sensing exercise, you can find out all that in the book. You place your attention on your body, and something changes because your attention is usually going out into the world around you. All of a sudden, your attention is split between the world around you and your body, and it's a bigger attention. And your body responds to it. Your nervous system responds to it. And in the other level of reality where our dead are and where the visitors apparently mostly are, they can see the change. You literally glow. And that was why right after Annie died, I went to a conference with William Henry in Nashville. And this lady came up to me and said, Mr. Strieber, the strangest thing just happened. I heard Ann's voice right in my ear. She had been to our conferences. She heard Ann on the radio. She said, tell Whitley I can see him when he's in the chair. And I realized immediately what that meant. It was when I was doing the sensing exercise, because I do it in a chair. And since then, it has also been the foundation of my continued relationship with Ann. It is the foundation and the key to having a relationship with this other level of reality. I'm absolutely convinced of it. And you don't need any incense, any fancy music, any super complex ways of meditation or anything. It's just the simplest darn thing in the world. It's simple.
I totally agree. I guess it kind of triggered me a little bit when you were talking about Pine Ridge, and I wondered if that's why you were sensitive to what was happening there at Pine Ridge.
I think it's why I'm sensitive to all of this stuff. And when I was at Pine Ridge and this was happening, I thought, my God, can I get into this? I want to go across the barrier.
Right.
So I tried. I did the sensing exercise, and I couldn't. It didn't help. I could not walk into the other universe. I sure as hell tried.
There you go, Brian. Thank you for the phone call.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Go Beckley Tappy.
Good night. Go Beckley Tappy, you guys.
That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Brian. And let's see. I'm looking at the clock. Let's get one more call in before the bottom of the hour. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. It's Deb from Sacramento.
Hi, Deb. Say hi to Whitley.
Hi. Hi, Whitley.
Hi.
Thank you for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for calling.
Yeah, I do have
there
a
would
quick
be no
question.
show if you guys were not calling.
You mentioned that your foundation basically was Christianity.
Yeah.
And because you mentioned it, I feel comfortable asking the question. I've heard a lot of people say that when entities come into their room and they're frightened, they call out on Jesus Christ, and when they do it, immediately everything stops. The beings disappear. They don't have any more problems. And then I've heard other people say the opposite, that they've called out on Jesus and it doesn't change a thing. Nothing happens. And
well,
so in
both
the
things
early,
happen.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, both things happen, I said.
In the early days, in your experience, because of your foundation, did you ever do anything like that? Did you call out on Jesus to make them go away because it was negative?
I don't want them to go away. I'm too curious. I never wanted them to go away. I just didn't like the way they were treating me. And that I changed. But I tried to change it and pretty much have changed. I never wanted them to go away. I wouldn't want them to go away at all. I mean, for goodness sakes, they're non-human and they are here. I want to know more. I'm not concerned about, are they demons or angels or anything? That doesn't even concern me. I'm only interested in what can I get out of this and what can I learn. And if that means I'm being foolish and I get into trouble and something happens to me, then fine. I'm going down this road with the full knowledge that it could be dangerous. And I'm going down it because I want to. And I'm loving it. I'm loving every minute of it, in fact. Now, as to whether or not calling on Jesus will help, here is what I know about this. When people do this, it is a signal to the visitors that they are not ready, and they will usually leave because they know that we're not going to get any further here. We're not going to get into any further communication with this individual. If they have to stay, if the person has something that they need or something like that, they will just ignore that and continue to do what they're doing. That's my impression of this. In other words, the power of the prayer is not actually relevant to the situation. What is relevant to the situation is the strength and dignity of your own soul. If you're working hard to build a good soul, you will be treated with respect. And if you're not, then, you're just living a life and you're screwing around and indifferent to the needs of others and not sensitive to them and not giving your life to others in the way we were taught, then they're going to treat you just like you treat everybody else.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well,
they
thank
treat
you.
you like
thank
you
you
treat
for,
everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deb.
Well, thank you, Whitley. I appreciate your opinion.
I wish I could have
Right.
told you what you wanted to hear, but this is what I understand.
Oh, no, I basically agree. And I have to say your book, Communion, was the scariest book I've ever read in my life. You think your intention was to scare people.
Try
But it
spending
was
the
very
night with me
compelling. I love the
somewhere.
way that
That'll
it
be
was
scary,
written
too.
because it really communicated the reality of what you went through. And I had to sleep with the light on for months. So I highly recommend it to people if they want a little dose of reality. It was excellent.
Well, thanks. Well,
Much
I am
more
here
scary than the
still,
movie.
30 years later, and they are still here too, and we are doing this together, and it is much changed.
Yeah. Deb,
Yeah.
thank you for the phone call. Great question.
Absolutely. Okay, guys, take care.
Yeah,
Night.
have a great night. Hey, Whitley, I'm not ready to stop. Can I keep you for one more segment?
Yeah, that'll be $15.
$15. Check is in the mail. Check is in the mail.
You keep me for one more segment, sure.
Yeah, let's do this. And when we come back, I actually want to continue the religious side of this conversation. And so I'm not
because it's important. It's
is.
what one of the most important things that we have to bring to this.
Let's take a quick break. Our guest tonight, Whitley Strieber, night 3 of our Open Lines Week here on Fade to Black. The call-in number, it's an easy one, 747-228-2051. Stay right there. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Whitley Strieber. This is night 3 of our Open Lines Week on Fade to Black. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, completing the week, is Richard Dolan. He will be here taking your calls tomorrow night, helping me man the phones. Tonight it's Whitley. We're going into some overtime. And right before the break, there's 2 things or 3 themes that have gone through tonight. And I really appreciate the audience and how do I say this? Everybody has got these same thoughts on their mind, and religion is something that constantly comes up. And with that, Whitley, when we're talking about Jesus or invoking, I mean, if we look at the universe and the concept of religion, it doesn't matter which one, but religion is universal. So if you and I, Whitley, go to another planet, is Jesus there too, right? Is God a part of their culture? And if we invoke Jesus's name with the confrontation, do they know what we're or who we're talking about?
I don't know. I don't know that. But what I do know is this, that Jesus is part of us. Jesus is part of Western culture primarily, and part of us, in the sense that the sayings of Jesus lay down a way of living and a way of being that changes you and opens you to the needs of others in ways that really are very pure, very pure. But this one religion of this planet is got all kinds of powerful religions on it. And the Native American religion is incredibly powerful. I've experienced it just last summer. One of their rituals was among the most beautiful and powerful things I've ever known. And in in Islam, in Hinduism, in all of the religions, there's power. In Buddhism, there's great power and energy. The Master of the Key looked at Buddhism and Islam and Christianity as three different poles of the same religion. That Buddhism was it was a triad. Buddhism was the passive force in the triad, Islam the active force, and Christianity the reconciling force in the triad. He talks about that in the Key, and it's really very interesting because it takes you to a point where you are beyond the idea that one religion is the only religion. Annie said something that's very important, I think, especially when it comes to religion. She said, the human species is too young for beliefs. What we need are good questions. And what she was saying there is that there's no ground of truth here. We don't know for certain anything at all. And therefore, if you say my belief is better than your belief, you're already lying to yourself. Because in fact, your faith is just as valid as the other man's faith, even though his faith is completely different. Your faiths are equal. When Jesus says everyone is equal in the kingdom, he's talking about a level of equality that we don't even think about. We think of, some vague thing where the guy pushing a broom is actually equal to the Queen of England or whatever. Mm-hmm. But this level of equality at the soul level, this is different. This means that every man's faith is just as valuable as every other man's faith, every woman's faith, no matter what their faith is. And if they have no faith, they are still just as precious as anyone else. God does not see these differences.
You wrote one time one of the more moving things that you wrote about when you were in the cabin and the lights appeared outside, and the light being was there, and you saw in years past that same experience that you wrote about, that you went through 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, 500 years ago. Is that a religious experience? Right? Is that something
you could make it a religious? Probably 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago, it would have been interpreted as a religious experience,
right?
But that's not how we are now. In other words, we don't necessarily see the world through that lens. What I saw there, and folks, what happened was that I had been meditating for about 6 months, I guess, with these people that had been from the Between the Worlds, and they were sort of, they could be very physical. They were sort of semi-physical, and they would come crashing down on the roof above the meditation room, which is why I first noticed them. And then they would be around me, and I couldn't see them, which, go figure. But that's sort of the name of the game here. Mm-hmm. One night, Annie came in because she could hear them. They'd shake the whole house when they came. And she sits down in there, and she says, well, okay. She said, I'm going to do this. This is so exceptional that this is happening every night at 11, and I'm not going to pass this up. So she's sitting there, and it happens. And then she looks at me sort of wide-eyed, and she says, actually, I'm not ready for this. She leaves and goes downstairs and reads a book. But this man, at the end, the last night, we had lost the cabin. We were dead broke and moving to Texas in the morning. Everything was lost. This extraordinary place that we had created, it was a life. It was literally between the worlds. We were losing it. And I was saying to them, this is it. I will never be in this room again. This is the last time we are together here. And I know I have never seen you as you really are, even though I had seen one of them in a human form. Obviously, that was not his real form because they weren't walking around in the house, right? So nothing happened, and I went to bed. I had not been lying in bed for 2 minutes when a bright glow appeared in the front yard. And at first I thought the house was on fire. And I thought, oh, my God, the house is on fire. And then I thought, oh, good. If the house burns down, we'll get the insurance money and we won't have to leave. But then I rushed to the front window. And what happened was this star came out of the meditation room and hung over the front yard. It was bright, beautiful, pure white star with rays coming out of it. And the rays were like little lasers, and you could feel them penetrating your skin when they touched you. And there was this sense of this person's life. It was unbelievably intimate and beautiful and intense. And I realized this is what they really look like. And then it hit me. This is a human being. This is where we are trying to go. It was an incredible experience.
Well, and if somebody tried to share that same experience 2,000 years ago, the only way that others would be able to relate or understand would have to be a religious explanation.
Well, it would have to be, and that's how Paul saw it. I mean, obviously something similar happened to him on the road to Damascus.
Right.
Only I saw it basically as another human being on the journey.
Right.
On the way. And Paul saw it as his the person he had oppressed, Jesus of Nazareth, transmuted into what he thought of as a God. But what we got to realize and have to face is that this whole business of making Jesus distant from us and somebody far away and on high heaven is not the way to go. The way to go is to realize and to face the fact that you have this journey to take in your life. This is all of our journey. Everyone. And he said it himself. I am the Son of Man, not God. He said man.
How do you, what's your best advice to somebody that would have gone through the same experience, the next day they're sitting with their significant other and there needs to be a conversation there. And I'm not even sure how the conversation starts. Does it start with, I think I'm going crazy because, right?
I've had that conversation.
Right. What's the advice that you would have to give?
Well, my advice is to be darn careful because marriages break up over this stuff.
Sure.
And families and people lose their jobs. I can't say that, you need to sit down and say something really weird but fairly cool happened to me last night. I was abducted by aliens.
Right.
And your husband or wife is going to say, well, okay, I'm going to take the children home to my mother now or my father, and then we will be fully armed if you try to come get them.
Right. You'll hear from my
anything
attorney.
can happen.
Right.
My wife had a very different take on this because I delayed telling her for a long time, and I told a friend of mine, a friend of ours, an old friend, Timothy Greenfield Saunders, a photographer who lived in New York, and we were close friends. I told him, and I said, Timothy, I don't know how to tell Ann this, because I had tried to push Ann away in January and into February when I was thinking that I was going crazy, and I was afraid that I knew that she would never leave me, that if I ended up in a mental institution, she would be by my side no matter what. And I thought to myself, she doesn't deserve that. She would have to struggle. She'd have to work in jobs and while she was trying to raise a child. And a lot of people do that, but they don't do it necessarily alone. And, I just didn't I thought she was a beautiful young woman. She could find a real husband who could care for her and her son. And so I was trying to push her away. Then I realized that, damn it, there's no other explanation. It really was real. It happened. I'm not crazy. So I told Timothy this. And he said, well, oddly enough, my in-laws saw those creatures in their backyard the other day while they were having breakfast. These things were walking. We wondered what they were. He's very calm about it, and I said, well, that's great, because now I can tell Ann that, and because she's going to certainly ask for some kind of evidence. So I sat Ann down. She later said, I was afraid you were going to ask for a divorce. And I said to her, honey, I have to tell you something. She says, yes. I said, I think I was taken aboard a flying saucer by little men. And she looks at me. I look back at her. And she says, oh, thank God. I thought you were going crazy. And we both burst out laughing, of course. And then she realized I actually was not joking. And there was like a beat. And then she just was into it. She took over. She was the one who did all of our front line thinking about it from then on. She led this experience. She led our contact experience, and communion was built on her intelligence and her wisdom.
Yeah, her other response, which probably could have been something, oh, I thought you were going to tell me you were embezzling a corporation.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That was so hilarious.
That's it? It's just an abduction? Oh.
Oh, my God. I thought you were going crazy. Yeah, right. It was so hilarious, and we really laughed about it. We laughed about it for years.
Let's squeeze in one last phone call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Scott, Jimmy.
Hey, Scott. Say hi to Whitley.
Willie, you're like a legend here at my store.
Thank you.
I was going through a while back to a bookstore, and I just happened to turn my head, and I saw a book that said The Key. And I was looking at it, going, you know what? I picked it up, started reading it, purchased the book, came home and read it in about a day and a half. I read it so quick. There was a scene in there that brought me to my knees. And still to this day, I wrote this on my wall here at my store, and everybody that comes in here and they ask me, who wrote that? And I go, it's a secret. It's a master of the key. But it was, when you die, you see yourself truly. Better to see the truth now when change is possible than to find out later that you must remain strapped to the wheel of life. And I was like, what? And then my wife goes, who wrote that? And then she goes, can your ears hear now and your eyes see? And I looked at my wife, go, where did you come from? But it was an unbelievable saying, Whitley. I swear it's on my store. And I've got people that come in here and they look at that and they just can't believe that saying is just so true to the heart.
Well, I think it is. And it was that conversation with him was one of the luckiest things that ever happened in my life. And I still don't know who the heck he was.
The key should be a movie. Just the two of you, one room.
Figure out how to do that a couple times, and it's harder than you would think, because it's basically sort of like that old movie My Dinner with Andre. It's a conversation,
mm-hmm.
And a conversation is not a movie. People say to me sometimes, they say, "Oh, well, he wrote the key. He's the master of the key," and I think to myself, have they read it? Because then sure, I am not an ascended master, I don't think. Or if I am, I did not notice this. And those words in that book, many of them are words of truly breathtaking mastery. So, yeah, I wrote it. but
it truly
I
is.
did not
Was
write
this
it.
guy human? Was he a human form? Was this guy human that walked in?
He looked. I thought he was a room service waiter at first when he.
Yeah.
It was. I was asleep and the doorbell rang in the room, and I woke up and I saw my dinner things on the desk, so I figured it was room service. And I opened the door, and this man just walked right into the room, wearing a gray turtleneck and dark charcoal gray trousers. And he walks over to the window, turns around, and starts talking. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, it's not a room service waiter. It's somebody else who has come into my room in the middle of the night. This cannot be good. This has to be very bad news. And then he starts talking, and it turned into this extraordinary conversation. And I told Annie about it the next morning. I called her, and I said, don't let me decide it never happened. Because he did something that at the end, he asked me to drink this glass of this pale white liquid. Now, here's the weirdest thing. I did that. Why would anyone in their right mind do that?
Not me.
But no.
Not me.
No, of course not. And I wouldn't either, except under the circumstances, I was not entirely my own person. He would never have forced me to drink it, but he knew that if he asked me in a certain way, I would, and I did. And it was very bitter. And I remembered, I went immediately to sleep. In the morning, I woke up. The first thing I did was remember that. I rushed into the bathroom. The glass was pristine. It had been carefully washed, of course.
Yeah, right.
But here's the thing. I figured out what it was. The ancient Greeks called it the milk of Nepenthe, the milk of the goddess of sleep. It was opium. He had me drink a tincture of opium. And here's what's so amazing is he wanted me to go to sleep, but what he had was not a modern sleeping drug of any kind or something more effective. He had this old-fashioned opium, laudanum it was called, something from the past.
Why do you suppose he wanted you to sleep?
Because he wanted to make a getaway that I would not follow him and I would not be able to know where he went or anything.
That's exactly what I thought.
That's exactly right.
Very interesting.
He had no intention of me finding him. I could have asked for his driver's license. I've kicked myself 1,000 times over that. And then when I realized this incredible thing had happened, I started calling everyone I knew in Toronto and asking them if they knew anything. And the people at the publisher and so forth, nobody had ever heard of a man like that.
Have you ever, okay, let me ask you, I've thought about this so much. Do you think, I mean, he wasn't even in Toronto. That was a drive-by. He could have, from the future, right? Or something, there's something else. Because of the way that he was dressed, he was trying to be invisible, in my opinion. He didn't want to be noticed.
Right.
And I'm thinking that there's something else here. You know, he's from the past or from the future, but that was a drive-by. Nobody in Toronto
Annie
knew
used to
him.
say that she thought it was me from the future.
Yeah, well, I thought that too, but you would have noticed that.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought about
it is
that.
interesting. I didn't have that impression.
Right.
It never occurred to me that he was anything except a very unusual and interesting man. I never thought alien or anything. And this was 1998, and I'd had the visitors in my life then for more than 10 years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I never thought anything like that. It just was a very extraordinary man. That was my impression of him.
And that correlation, but if you look at that phrase, when you die, you see yourself truly. Better to see the truth now when change is possible than to find out later you must remain strapped to the wheel of life. That is such a fascinating paragraph or a saying that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's infected so many people's lives here that walk through the store.
Because we can change now. But when it's over and done, You can't. You can't repair the past. And, there are a lot of us, and I bet you it's really all of us, who have done things that we regret and can't change in our lives. And you have to accept those in yourself. That's where humility comes in. You have to accept, well, I did this. It was wrong. It hurt others or hurt somebody. And I can never undo that damage. But I have to accept that weakness in my soul and just give it to God and hope that there will be mercy for me. Because if we ignore that and we don't ask for mercy now for those things, we usually just don't want to look at them because we can't bear to think we can't change them. We have the courage to ask for mercy now. That's important. And to change the things we can. And after all, most of us, we may have some things like that in our lives, but most of us live pretty good lives. That was one of the things I've learned about this. Most people are not bad. Most people are good. The bad people, they get in the news because they're so unusual.
Yeah, like Scott here. Hey, Scott. Scott, enjoy the rest of your night, man, and thank you for the phone call.
Man, great book. I would suggest anybody go out and get that key, man. That's a great book. It changed my life. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Scott. Great phone call. And Whitley, I do want to take the opportunity here to say thank you for hanging out with this audience, which is all family. And
yeah, it feels like family on your show. It really does.
It is all of that. And I've got a bunch of other questions here we don't have time for. But so everybody that wrote in and emailed, thank you for those questions. And I will get them to Whitley at some point.
Well, I want to say a couple of things before we go. First of all, this week's Dreamland, Josh Boone, the director, is going to interview me about the book, about A New World. And Josh is working on a TV series being developed at a network about my life. And so this is the first time we've said anything publicly about it. He's been working on it for about a year. And so that's going to happen on Dreamland, and my website's Unknown Country, and my book is A New World. It's available on Amazon.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And everybody, Unknown Country is a library of years of compiled stuff from Whitley. And let me ask you that everybody, because I've spent so much time over at Unknown Country over the years and listened to Dreamland. Just for me, I've got 30 seconds. I wrote this down as a note to myself that I wanted to get in tonight. Who is, because I've listened to so many of your conversations and interviews over the years, who is your favorite person to just sit and talk with? Who's number one? When I ask you that question, one person comes to mind. Who is it?
Well, in my case, it's Ann.
Oh, okay, that was too easy. Okay, who's number two?
Number two to just sit and talk with? Gosh, I don't know. I love to talk to so many people. I hardly ever find someone I'm talking with I don't want to talk with unless they're being mean to me.
Right. Because the way that you converse on Dreamland, it is just so engaging, and
thank you.
And I've thought to myself many times, Whitley's got to have a favorite, because you have a lot of guests that you know.
No, listen. I might have a favorite, but I'm sure not going to tell you who my favorite guest to talk to is, because then I might end up with just one guest.
That's not a bad thing. Whitley.
Yeah, it is. I love my guests. I'm talking to Artie Six Killer Clark, the Native American anthropologist, tomorrow. We're interviewing for a show that's going to be in a couple weeks about Native American experiences of the visitors, and it's going to be. I'm just so excited about doing that, and I do this every week, once or twice a week, and it's wonderful. I've been doing it for 21 years.
Thank you so much, Whitley.
Thank you.
Absolutely. UnknownCountry.com. The links are over at Jimmy Church Radio. And, of course, the book is the new one, A New World, Whitley Strieber. Thank you, Whitley. Now go meditate. Go meditate.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you. Whitley Strieber. Great conversation tonight. And again, Unknown Country, the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. And I ran right up to it. I've got a few seconds to get the credits in before I'm off the network. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2019 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you to Whitley Strieber. Tomorrow night, night 4 of Call-In Week on Fade to Black, Richard Dolan. Until then, everybody be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.